Howdy, everybody. I hope you are all having a beautiful Monday, and I hope that your weekend was even better. You, of course, are tuned into Aesthetic Aesthetic. I'm your hostess with the mostest. You already know my name. They call me Germ. And to the ladies and gentlemen, the boys and girls, the Mr. and Lady viewing at home, once again, thank you all so much for tuning in and checking us out. This, of course, is not an average Monday. It's not a normal day at all, really. Today is 420. You heard that right. It's 420. Now, just that phrase itself is guaranteed to garner a reaction, whether negative, whether it be positive. The only thing that all of those reactions are going to have in common is that they are all going to be rooted back to good old-fashioned Mary Jane. Now, what started out as an insider reference has went on to become a global call to weed smokers everywhere. It's honestly, at this point, it's such a overhyped sort of, commercialized day that to most long-term weed smokers like myself, it's really not that big of a deal. But in order to understand how it got to that point, how it got to where it is now, we have to know the true history and origins of 420. So in order for me to celebrate the day properly, I felt not only do I need to go ahead and get high as fuck after I get done recording this, I need to take a little bit of time to explain to you all the true history of 420 and where it came from. So with all that being said, y'all already know the deal. I want you to go ahead and get comfortable, get a snack, get a drink, prop those feet up, and since today is a special day, go ahead and get some weed ready or get yourself an edible, because after a small little moment, we're going to take a little bit of a time to explain 420 and its history to y'all. Before we get into the true history and origins of 420, I think that it's really important that we dispel some of the false narratives out there that are about it. Firstly, there's an idea that all marijuana offenses under police code are listed as 420. That is not the case on how 420 got its name. That is not where it came from. Neither is the idea that it came from a Bob Dylan song where he talked about 12 times 35 equaling 420 and that the entire world just needs to get stoned. Stoned meaning getting high, not actually killing people by throwing rocks. Now, the real true history, the real true story of 420 actually comes from the 1970s, more specifically fall 1971. It happened in a small town of California called San Rafael, and it involved a group of 5 high school friends who went by the name of the Waldos. Now, the Waldos, they bonded over 2 things: their love of bell-bottom jeans and their love of ganja. I don't know why I find it funny that they all loved bell-bottom jeans. The 70s must have been a funny time. There's just something funny about a group of 5 guys all loving bell-bottom jeans. But that is not the most important part. Getting back onto the track about how they loved 420, the Waldos all had a daily routine. They had a daily routine where they would all meet up after high school classes were done, after football practice was over. The 5 of them would meet up on campus next to a statue the school had named after a famed chemist named Louis Pasteur. And what the 5 of them would do at the Louis is that they would all smoke a joint together, and then they would head off over into the Point Reyes woods where they would search for a crop of marijuana that one of the Waldo's brothers had been growing. See, this brother was worried about the police catching on to him, about 12 popping him for that weed he had grown. So what he did was he drew a map for his little brother on where it was at and told him and his friends that as long as they can find it, they can harvest it and they can take that shit for themselves. They never found it. They were not able to locate that crop no matter how often they went out there and searched. But they went through that routine a whole lot. They were meeting up at 420, they were smoking their joint, and then they were going into the woods. And they did this so often that 420, or 420 Louis, as they originally called it, it became a part of the group's slang and lingo. It was such a big thing amongst their group that they were putting it on all the pictures and all the postcards that they were taking. And it was so important to them that they decided that when they wanted to save those memories they had, they ended up putting all of the 420 pictures and postcards inside of a bank vault. The only reason I really mention that is that once the 420 term became recognized by the Oxford English Dictionary, they ended up using those same pictures and postcards that the Waldos had to give them first credit and to give them, the first dibs as originators of the term. Again, not the most important part of the story, but that's something that I felt was cool, and I liked how they used that history they saved to do it. Getting back on track as to how it went from the Waldos to this global thing that it is now, you have to give credit for that aspect of the story onto two parties. The first being the Grateful Dead. Now, the Grateful Dead, admittedly, I am not familiar with this band at all. I don't know too much about their music. Couldn't name one of their songs from a can of paint. But the Grateful Dead played such a big part of the story that you have to mention. You see, the band's bassist, a guy that went by the name of Phil Lesh, he was close friends with one of the Waldos brothers. And it was that familial connection that allowed them to all come together and for the Waldos to hang out with the Grateful Dead. And it's during this times hanging out, probably smoking, probably jamming around, listening to, watching them make music or just tell stories, that they were able to pass on that idea and concept of 420 over to the Grateful Dead. And it was from there that a natural just explosion, a natural expansion of 420 as an idea just happened. Because you see, it was as they were going on tour, as they are going across to these different cities and probably countries and everything like that, that 420 stops just being a Waldo's thing and starts being a weed smokers everywhere thing. And so it really is by the 90s that 420 is a weed smokers thing. It's known, it is just a idea that if you know, you know. But that is also where the second most important part of its becoming the thing it is comes into the picture, a man by the name of Steve Bloom. You see, Steve Bloom was a writer for the magazine High Times, which, as it suggests, is a magazine all about cannabis and cannabis culture. And so Steve Bloom decides to go to a Grateful Dead show. This is during the 90s. And it is at this show that he ends up getting a flyer that ends up being a big part of the story, because this flyer was just a simple little, hey, we're going to meet up at 420 on 420, and we're going to meet at this specific location, and we're going to engage in 420 activities. But Steve Bloom found it so charming. He found it so just adorable almost, I can't think of a better word, that he decided to publish it in the High Times magazine. And from there, it was up. 420 just went on to become a thing of its own. It became its own huge event. Weed smokers everywhere recognize it now. It's to the point where, like I said before, 420 itself is damn near just, it's not that big of a deal. The day itself is not that big of a deal to people who smoke weed because it's just another day. But that really is the story of 420 and how it became what it became. And it's really just that. It started just with a group of 5 guys. Get it? 5 guys, like the burger chain. I'll see myself out. But it really just started as a group of 5 guys taking their whole little insider slang and it becoming a huge global thing. It's to the point where one of the founders even said, like, it's insane how it has become what it's become. Because it really was just, I hate to say it again, these 5 friends just having their own little insider slang. I was ready to call it 5 guys again. But it was really just them having their own thing. And now you've got 420 protests and festivals. You've got them happening in America. You've got them happening in Europe, in Asia, even Australia. 420 is literally everywhere. And that's everything. That's the story of 420, and that is the story of the men who created it. At this point, 420 has become so bastardized and memed that I doubt most people understand or really even know the true story of it. That's why I felt it was so important for me to tell y'all the story, because I myself, like I imagine a lot of you, I was surprised at just how it spread. You know, you have to give such a big shout out to the Grateful Dead, because without them having the successful career that they had, 420 wouldn't be what it is. I doubt weed smokers would have a universal day we all celebrate it like this, and I doubt that it would have become what it has. As weed has become more and more accepted now, because now we got breweries that create weed ales and everything like that. It is a big deal in the world on 420. It is not a recognized holiday, but it is right below April Fool's Day to me in terms of how notable of a day it actually is. And it all started with 5 friends. Circling back to the Waldos, I honestly can't imagine how cool it's got to be to have a whole global phenomenon start from you or friends in your whole little insider reference. And that's really the whole root of the day, and honestly the root of what this is to me. You see, for me, I think marijuana has always been a tool, a plant that has helped bring people together and help them bond. And the Waldos are a perfect example, because it's those experiences they had growing up that helped them all bond together, and it's the legacy of their friendship that helped weed smokers across the world. So as we celebrate today, I think I speak for all of us when I say ups and shout outs to Waldos. This next little ganja that I smoke, that one is going to be beef for y'all. But that's all I had for you today. I'm your boy Germ, and I hope that you are all having a beautiful and a safe 420. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment on how you are celebrating your 420, because I would love to read all about it. With all that being said, you already know the deal. Make sure you drink a lot of water. Make sure you tell your friends and family that you love them. Make sure you just continue to be good people. And I will say that if you're smoking today anywhere that it is not legal, make sure that you do so safely so that you don't get caught up on no bullshit over it. But like I said, this has been Kinetic Aesthetic. I'm your boy Germ, and I'm out.